Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I want to make a video, hopefully a non-clickbaity and non-fear-mongering video, regarding the new ATF pistol stabilizing brace rule and amnesty registration. I've mentioned in the past that there's a lot of videos out there that are promoting this hype, hysteria, and I believe misinformation and myths regarding all of what is going on and what's really happening. So I wanted to make a video to address many of the questions that I have been getting asked through my email and through my videos on my YouTube channel. Now, I want to say before I go through these frequently asked questions, who this video is for. I want to state that as a matter of fact. I do know that there is a large contingency and probably the majority of people that own firearms like this that are out there online and they're saying, I am not going to comply. I'm not going to do this. This is the hill I'm ready to die on. They are not going to register my gun. And that is perfectly fine. This video is not about the legitimacy of this rule, and yes, I know it is a rule and not a law. I am not here to debate any of the merits of it. I am simply here to answer the frequently asked questions that I have been getting from a lot of people that I think are really anxious about this, who are confused about what to do, and maybe are trying to get as much information as possible before they make any decision for themselves. After all, the rule was only recently published, and the legal landscape might be completely different in 30, 60, or 90 days from now. But I am just trying to get this information out there. So this video is for those people that might have some questions regarding what they're going to do. I think it is really important to understand, especially those people that will not comply, do not want to comply, and believe this is a trap, that they have to understand that not everybody is in the same situation that they are in. For example, I was recently emailed by somebody who lives in the state of Maryland, and they said, I don't think I really have a choice because the state already has registration on my braced pistol. Because I guess in that state, when you buy a gun like this, it already goes on a state registration. And of course that means that if the federal government and the state want to work together, they can look at each other's records and go, well, this person has it registered in the state but not on the federal level, and they can go and investigate them. So they're obviously a little bit scared. And so maybe this non-compliance of I will not comply and whatever is not going to work for them. There's also been people that have contacted me that are just a casual gun owner. They don't follow politics and laws and have gigantic collections of firearms, maybe like myself or you, but they bought one of these at a gun show, or maybe a family member gave them one, and they're like, what do I do about this? This isn't something that I want to be arrested over. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose my house. I don't want to have to deal with the legal system. It's not really that important to me, but I want to stay in compliance, but I support the people that want to defy this and fight this in the courts. Well, that's what this video is about. There's no hype, there's no hysteria. I try to give you guys the best information that I have found to answer your questions. And remember too, I am not a lawyer. So please don't take anything I say as legal advice. However, I am going to put in the description of this video the citations for where I find all of this information so you can go look it up yourself. You are free, by the way, to believe that the ATF is lying and all of this information that I am giving to you is false. They will change it. You will be arrested and they're going to take everything from you. That is perfectly fine. I support you. You can believe whatever it is you want. However, I am going to put all those citations in the description so you guys can go and do your own research and be informed to make your best choice. So with all of that said, let's talk about a few of the things that people have asked me. And so I've made a little bit of a list here on my computer, so I'm sorry if this is a little bit rambly and this might not be my best presented video. But let's start with the main one that I've been getting the past week, and it deals with 922R compliance. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, 922R compliance is a part of the U.S. Code which says essentially you cannot build a foreign gun out of foreign parts that otherwise is banned from importation under this particular section. Now, I have listed it, I have shown it on the videos. I might even be doing that right now, so you guys can go check it out. You guys can also go to the link in the description, see what the actual US code says. And I know a lot of people think, well, that means you can't put a stock on this. You are admitting to the federal government you have a non-922R compliant firearm, and just simply you submitting this form, they're going to come confiscate the gun, arrest you. You've admitted to a felony. You're going to be arrested. Well, there's a couple things to understand about 922R that we should talk about. First and foremost, ever since 922R was passed back in 1986, there have been people that have been submitting Form 1s and building SBRs out of foreign made firearms since that time, and there has never once been an issue. To my knowledge, there has not been a single person that has ever been arrested and convicted on a 922R compliance charge by itself. It has always been used as an upcharge for other things. So for example, if a criminal is caught with an illegal machine gun and a gun that would have been an unregistered SBR, or maybe it's even non-SBR, but it's made of all these foreign parts, they add on just to get as much charged on him as possible. So that's pretty much what this has always been. This rule has always mainly pertained to importers and sellers and not individuals, because there's a word missing in 922R in the code that talks about possession. It simply says the assembling or the building, but not the possession. So you are allowed to own a rifle that does not meet 922R compliance as long as you did not build or assemble that firearm. So as such, the ATF has said that you can amnesty register these firearms without any worry whatsoever about not being in compliance. So as I said, people have been making SBRs out of imported receivers for a long time, ever since the rule was passed. I know that I have a few, and many people that are watching this video probably have a few. It's not an issue. It never has been. If it would have been an issue, the ATF already would have gone after the millions of registered SBRs that are out there that are made from Heckler & Koch or B&T receivers, but they never have, because it's not an issue, because possession is not illegal. Only building the rifle is considered to be illegal, and it's not something that is even enforced, because it's so hard to enforce. Because how do you break a gun down and look at a hammer and say that hammer was made in a foreign country, but it's not marked US or made in Germany or made in China? It doesn't say any of that. So they would have to prove that. It's just not worth their time. This is mainly a regulation for importers. So if you are worried that you have an imported pistol and it has a pistol stabilizing brace, the ATF has already said you can amnesty register those without any concern about being in violation. Some other people have been asking me about the transportation of an amnesty registered or an NFA device at all. And so some of the misinformation that is being spouted out there, I think, is coming from people that either are trying to rile up the base and get more clicks on their videos, or are coming from people that have never once owned an NFA item. I can tell you that I have been an NFA collector for over 10 years, and I've had to deal with these issues. And yes, it is a hassle. I fully admit it. Luckily, I live in a state like Texas that's so big, we're essentially our own country. So I understand maybe if you live in a smaller state and you cross state lines a lot, this might be an issue and a little bit of a hassle, but this is nothing that NFA owners haven't been dealing with ever since the NFA was a thing. So the question I'm getting is, can I transport this gun across state lines? The answer is yes, but you have to fill out a very simple form, and I will put that form in the description. And unfortunately, this form is not on the ATF Form system. However, you can simply download it, you write on it, you can scan it, and you essentially email it to NFA FAQs at atf.gov, or I'll actually put the actual email address as well. This is a very simple form that often is approved between 3 and 7 days. That's it. You don't have to wait 5, 6, 7 months. They get these, and all it pretty much asks you is which item are you taking across state lines, where are you going to, and how long do you think it's going to be there, and how are you going to transport it. And you can have this form for up to a year. You can say between January 1st and December the 31st of this particular year, they'll sign off on it. You just keep the form with it. So let's say I'm going to go to Oklahoma with one of my SBRs, or if I Amnesty registered a firearm like this, I can take it to Oklahoma. I just fill out the form. It's good for a year. I'll put the dates. I say, hey, I'm going to shooting competitions or a friend's residence, and I email it to them. It will come back approved, and that's all it is. And then you're allowed to take it there. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard to do. You're going to be allowed to do it, but it is a little bit of hassle. And so I hope that when people that are new to the NFA have to deal with this, it's going to help us vote in the right people that will help us fight the NFA, and not just this pistol brace stabilizing rule. Because after all, the big fish isn't this rule. It's the actual NFA itself. And if we vote in the right people, we might be able to make some changes in the future. All right, so the next question I'm getting asked a lot is, can we register or Amnesty register our firearms on our trust? And the answer to this question is yes, but there is a little bit of a caveat. Now, I will tell you that most of my NFA firearms are registered to me as an individual. And the reason that I personally do this is I find that the paperwork is a lot more simple, because when it comes to the different trust documents that are in the different states, the different laws apply, the ATF has to do all that, and any person that is on that trust also has to submit fingerprints and photographs, and has to do all the background checks and all that. So it can make the paperwork a lot more cumbersome. It's not overwhelming, but it's definitely a few extra steps. And I find that doing it as an individual is easier. However, I do have an NFA trust for a few items that I did register on it a while back. Now, the ATF has posted a frequently asked questions thing on their site regarding all of this. Now, as I said, many of you are more than welcome to say they are completely lying about this. This is false information. It's a trap. The one thing I would say is that if you do believe that is the case, you should download this document from their website, document where it came from, so in case you are ever arrested or detained and you have to deal with this, you can go to a judge and a jury of your peers, which, by the way, you are not a felon until you have been convicted in a court of law. So all these YouTube channels that say you're a felon on day one if you don't do this, no, you are not a felon until you have been arrested, booked, charged, gone to trial, found guilty, and convicted. That is when you become a felon. So if you haven't had all those things happen to you, you're not a felon. But let's just say you get detained and questioned. Well, any competent attorney could take the information from the ATF website, especially if you have it documented, show it to a judge, show it to a jury, and says, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client was following the advice and the instructions of this agency to the letter. He did his best to follow the rules. This person should be found innocent. And I can guarantee you that the judge would probably throw out the case before the jury even had to rule on it, because the judge would go, yeah, this is absolutely crazy. This citizen did, in their best opinion, what the law and this rule said. So you are once again free to believe that this is a trap, that this is complete false information. The ATF is lying to you. I support your opinion. I just want to get that out there. All right, but in their frequently asked questions, they mentioned this when it comes to a trust. And let me go ahead and pull this up right here. And it is number 12, and they say, yes. However, the firearm would have needed to be owned by the trust prior to the date the final rule is published in the Federal Register. Evidence that the firearm was in the trust should be provided with the registration document. Now, this is something that I think is actually going to be a little bit tricky, because before the final rule, you can add and subtract firearms from a firearm trust simply by amending the trust. Many times you get a little document that you can hand write and personally date. It does not have to be notarized. The only thing that's hard to get in and off of trusts are Title II firearms, things that are regulated by the National Firearms Act. But any Title I firearm can easily be added or taken away from the trust at will. It is that easy. The executor or the grantor of the trust can do it at any time. So how is the ATF going to prove that you didn't backdate the document? They honestly can't. So if you submit your trust and you have this little invoice sheet of the items that are owned by the trust, you can backdate it. I'm not saying because that would be illegal. However, I don't think the ATF is going to have any way of figuring out when that document was created or when you actually amended it. It's just going to be kind of on the honor system. Now, they're not going to ask for receipts, because when you buy a firearm at the gun store, when you fill out a 4473, you don't do it in the trust's name, you do it in your name, and then you would go home and add it to your trust using that form. So I don't think people really have that much to worry about. If you want to do it as a trust, you can. However, personally, I like to do it as an individual, but your situation may vary a little bit. And once again, I'm not telling you to break the law. Please don't say that. But if you're worried, let's say you added the gun to the trust before the publication of this final rule, and you're like, how is the ATF going to figure it out? They're honestly not. They're just going to say, well, you submitted the document that is dated before the final rule was published saying that the trust owned this firearm. That's what they're going to go with. The next question I've been asked is about inheritance. Now, a lot of people are spreading misinformation about this. They're essentially saying, I own one of these braced pistols, and if you Amnesty register it, you're the only person that could ever have their hands on it. And when you die, the ATF is going to come and confiscate it. I don't know why that type of information is being spread out there, because the NFA has been around since 1934, and there is a form that deals with this. It's called the Form 5, which is a tax-exempt transfer of a NFA-regulated firearm. I've actually filled one out, and you can fill them out for different reasons. Death and inheritance can be one, but also if you're sending the firearm to a FFL for work, and you just want to make sure that if anything happens because it's going out of state, that the ATF knows, you can fill out a Form 5, and they'll Form 5 it back to you. As I said, it's a tax-exempt transfer. It's used all the time, and they're usually processed very, very quickly. So let's just say I register this particular firearm, which, by the way, this one is on loan to the channel from my good friend D, because I am currently reviewing it. It's a Rifle Dynamics AK, but let's just say I own this and I registered it, and then I have an untimely passing in a couple of years. Well, in my will, I will have already said I will all of my firearms, including my NFA firearms, to whomever. That person and the executor of my estate, all they have to do is fill out a Form 5. During that time, the executor has legal authority to take control of the firearms. This is set precedence. It is set law. It's the way it's always worked with NFA firearms when people pass away that own them. So just because you Amnesty register your braced pistol, maybe you put on a stock, you do something else with it, upon your passing, no, the ATF will not come and collect it when they find out you have died. It will just go to your next of kin or the person that you listed in the trust on a Form 5. It will then be in their possession. Then they have the right to dispose of it however they want. If they want to sell it, they'd have to Form 4 it to somebody else. If they want to keep it, they can do that. And they can keep it for the rest of their life. And when they pass away, you can Form 5 that to the next of kin. And it can just go through the generations that way. So all of this fear-mongering when it comes to your gun will eventually be confiscated upon your demise is completely false. It will be like everything else that is NFA regulated. Silencers, short-barreled shotguns, machine guns, all that stuff, it all goes through the same inheritance process. Then there's another thing that a lot of people are spreading when it comes to misinformation, and I'm not really sure, once again, why so many YouTube channels are lying about this. After all, I'm not going to say that they're doing it necessarily to raise hype and make people more upset. It's just misinformation. People are saying that, hey, if I Amnesty register my braced pistol and I take it to the range, I can't let anybody else touch it and nobody else can shoot it because it's registered to me. And once again, many of the people that are saying this in the comments that I'm seeing on the videos are people that have never, ever owned an NFA firearm, and maybe they don't know anybody that owns one of these or owns a silencer. But if you have it registered to you as an individual, as long as you are present, you are considered in control of that firearm. So you are allowed to let other people shoot that firearm in your presence. It could be your spouse, your friend, your kids, somebody just at the range, somebody you don't know. As long as you are present, they can shoot the firearm with no problem. Now, if you have an NFA item registered on your trust, then anybody on the trust can have possession and shoot that firearm, and as long as they are in control of the firearm, which means present, other people that are not on the trust can shoot it as well. So to prove my point, if you go to the range and a friend of yours owns a silencer and they're like, hey, would you like to shoot this? Well, they can let you shoot it with no problem. It's completely legal. It would be the same process if you had a Amnesty registered braced pistol, which, by the way, if you do Amnesty register one of these, I do hope you take off the brace and put on a stock. And then, of course, you can put on vertical foregrip if you want. But you can let other people shoot it. That is a complete misnomer. It's misinformation that's being spread out there. Now, another thing that I get asked about is engraving. Now, in my last kind of video on this topic, I misspoke. And I am completely open to admitting when I make a mistake, because at that time, the rule was not 100% clear. And this has to do with marking or engraving the receiver once you Amnesty register it. So, in the normal process of things, if you were going to do a tax-paid Form 1, and I own this particular AK, and I submitted my paperwork, my $200 tax, I get the approval, I can take this off, put on a stock, I would then be required by law to mark on the receiver my name or my trust name and the location of where I'm at. So in this case, I would say Frisco, Texas. I would say Jason from the Texas Gun Vault and Frisco, Texas. And that's the thing I would have to put on there, because I am now technically the maker of the firearm, not the manufacturer, but the maker of the firearm. The ATF has said that if you Amnesty register these are not yours that you have made. They were already made in the past. So therefore, you can just use the markings that are on the receiver. And on their frequently asked questions, it is number 27. So let me go ahead and pull that up and I will read that directly. The question that is asked is, once the firearm is registered, am I required to mark the firearm since I manufactured a short-barreled rifle? And the response the ATF gives is, if the SBR equipped with a stabilizing brace is registered within the 120-day tax forbearance period, the possessor is allowed to adopt the markings on the firearm. The maker's markings exception is only applicable to firearms that are registered pursuant to the final rule. If the firearm is a personally made firearm, the possessor must mark in accordance with 27 CFR 478.92 and 479.102 prior to submitting the E-Form 1. And what that is if you make a firearm from an 80% receiver or some other type of receiver that you manufactured yourself, you will be legally required to put your name and create a serial number of your choosing, because now you are the manufacturer before submitting the Form 1, and that information will need to go on the Form 1 because you manufactured the receiver and now you're making the SBR. But that's the only thing that you would have to mark. But if you own a gun like this that you purchased at a gun shop or a gun show, it has the pistol stabilizing brace, and then you register it, unlike the information I gave before, or if you Form 1 in a traditional sense, you do not have to mark your name on the receiver. So the ATF has clarified that. So that actually will make this easier for people. You don't have to go out and find an engraver to make sure it looks all nice. You can just use the engraving that is already on your firearm. Now, two other things that I do want to mention before I end this video, and this is just going to go back regarding many of the concerns that people have, is, Jason, can the ATF come to my house and inspect my firearm anytime they want after I register it through this amnesty? The answer to that is no. Just like if you own any other NFA item, a machine gun, a short-barreled rifle, a short-barreled shotgun, a destructive device, and any other weapon, a silencer, they cannot come and just randomly inspect your safes or ask to see the weapon. Your Fifth Amendment is still in play. They have to have a warrant and reasonable suspicion that that item had been used in a crime, and they have to find it to pursue this investigation. Now, as I said, the NFA has been around since 1934, and not one single time has the ATF just randomly gone up to somebody's door and said, "We want to see all of your NFA items. Do you have a warrant?" No, we just want to see them. It's never happened because you have the right to your own personal properties, papers, and effects. So without a warrant, they can't come into your house. They can't ask to inspect your firearms. They can't do anything. That has been the case. And don't you think that by now, with registered machine guns since 1934, now machine guns are always and have been considered the most deadly and most regulated items on the NFA, don't you think they would have done this by now? Well, they never have, and they're not going to. So your Fifth Amendment, you are still going to be secure in your home. They can't come and ask to inspect your gun at any time. And the last thing I do want to remind people is something about the restrictive use of information. I mentioned this in my last video. A lot of people say it doesn't matter, the ATF doesn't follow the law, the rules anyway. But once again, as I said, if they arrest you, make sure you remember this so you can tell your attorney so he can show it to a judge, show it to a jury of your peers. People are very concerned that if you amnesty register this and there's some type of problem with the paperwork or whatever, that now that you have admitted to a felony and they're going to come and investigate you and arrest you. And I want to read once again from 26 U.S. Code 5848 regarding the restrictive use of information. And this comes from the 1968 Gun Control Act when it comes to the legalities of Title II firearms, which are controlled under the National Firearms Act. It says, A, general rule. No information or evidence obtained from an application, registration, or records required to be submitted or retained by a natural person in order to comply with any provision of this chapter or regulations issued thereunder shall, except as provided in subsection B of this section, be used directly or indirectly as evidence against that person in a criminal proceeding with respect to a violation of law occurring prior to or concurrently with the filing of the application or registration or the compiling of the records containing the information or evidence. And that one exception is B, furnishing false information. Subsection A of this section shall not preclude the use of any such information or evidence in a prosecution or other action under any applicable provision of law with respect to the furnishing of false information. So as long as you do not lie on the form, you know, this is a Rifle Dynamics braced pistol. If I don't say, hey, it's a Colt, and intentionally lie about me being a prohibited person and falsify information, they cannot use anything on that application to prosecute you or investigate you. You can fill out the form and say, I want to register this machine gun. And they'll deny it, but they can't come to you and ask you about it. They can't come and investigate you about it. They can't come and arrest you about it because this is in law. Now, as I said, some of you may say, they're still going to do it anyway. Okay. I'll give it to you. Let's just say that they do, and they put you in the car, and they take you down, and they book you. Well, I would like to talk to my attorney. Excuse me, Mr. Attorney, I need to show you this statute, 26 U.S. Code 5448. And he'll go, oh yeah, look at this. The prosecutor can't do anything. Let me go ahead and give this to the judge. Judge, I move for a motion of dismissal because this is the federal law. The judge will look at it and go, yeah, it's thrown out. And even if he doesn't, you show this to a jury of your peers and you will get found innocent. We all know that. So don't believe the hype. Don't panic. Don't have these fits of hysteria. Everything's going to be okay. And once again, I feel like I need to end this video and make sure that you all know that I do believe that this ATF pistol brace rule is a complete overreach. It is completely unconstitutional. I believe that we should fight it, but I also believe that we should fight it in a smart way. The way that you're going to overturn this is through the courts, and I think that we all should be contacting our representatives and telling them our displeasure in this and how this is wrong and making them aware of it. We need to be donating to Second Amendment advocacy groups that are going to be fighting this in the courts and filing lawsuits. I really hope that a lot of these people that are saying they're not going to comply and the people that are out there ready to fight the ATF and this is it and I have all my house rigged with booby traps for when they come to collect this. I truly hope that none of that has to happen because that's only going to make gun owners look worse in the eyes of the public. If we do this through smart means, if we're calm, we're rational, we don't look like crazy people, and we can clearly state our facts and our information and make a case to the public, make a case to judges, make a case to juries, all of this will get thrown out. I promise you, we just have to be patient and do this the smart way. As Sun Tzu said, all battles are won and lost before they are ever fought, which means you want to go about this and be smart about it. Make good decisions, be logical, be reasonable, and come across as a rational person. Don't go out there yelling, I won't comply. I'm going to take as many of these ATF agents out as possible when they come to collect my braced pistol. Don't be that way. It looks crazy. And people that might even own these guns because they bought one at a gun show that are just trying to figure out what they're going to do, they're going to look at you and go, I don't really want to be associated with these people. And of course, the people that are anti-gun are just going to go, that's proof they're crazy. And then the people that don't really care about the Second Amendment, that don't even think about guns, are going to go, yeah, they're the tinfoil hat crazy ones. It doesn't help our cause. Be rational, be reasonable, be calm. Stop spreading the information. Stop being hysterical. Make good decisions. Get good information and do your own research. And that reminds me once again, I'm going to put all of this information in the description below and probably as a pinned comment. Please do not believe me. Go do your own research. And once again, if you disagree with me or think that the citations that I'm giving you is false, the ATF isn't going to follow that, that's perfectly fine too. I support you. We're all on the same team here. So I hope this answered a few questions that I have been getting. I hope it calms some nerves. And as this all progresses, I will try to make more videos in the future. And if you have any other questions for me, please feel free to email me at texasgunvault@gmail.com. And all of the other ways to follow me is in the description, as well as my wife's new Instagram and Facebook, as well as the Facebook of the Texas Gun Vault and my personal Instagram there. So you have plenty of ways of following me, plenty of ways of contacting me. I look forward to having a great conversation in the comments section below. Please just don't be hysterical. Let's be logical, rational, reasonable human beings. So let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.